On this episode of the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast, I continue through the Parade and Sign of the Times Studio Sessions book to cover Last Heart. Last Heart was recorded in early January 1986 at Sunset Sound Studios in Hollywood, California. Prince is on all of the instruments, except for, of course, saxophone, which was Eric Leeds, and there are uncredited background vocals that you can hear by Susanna Melvoin. According to Prince Vault, the song was on various configurations of the aborted Dream Factory album in 1986, and despite Prince claiming he always intended to re-record Last Heart in the liner notes of 1998's Crystal Ball, where the song would finally officially be released. So what exactly did he say in Crystal Ball? And I quote, "Last Heart. This was intended as a demo, which is usually unheard of in Prince's mind. He had always intended on re-recording this track, but never got around to it. Eric Leeds is on sax." Never got around to it. So apparently, like, the configurations that had been floating around where it showed Last Heart on Dream Factory, maybe it was just a placeholder. Maybe it was like, okay, when I get around to re-recording the song, that's what's going to be on Dream Factory. Or he just misremembered and thought he was going to re-record it, and then ultimately said, oh, no, the version I recorded in January was fine. Eric's sax is great. Let's just put that on there. But of course, the end result was no Dream Factory, no Last Heart for another 12 years. So it's kind of a moot point where he intended on being or where it intended on going, because it never did go on anything in the 80s. But surprisingly enough, Prince performed the song live. So an unreleased song that he played live in the 80s, which is pretty unusual. It's not unheard of, but it's unusual. And he performed it live at a Prince and the Revolution show in Paris, France on August 24th, 1986. And according to Prince Vault, that is the one and only time the song was played live. The song Last Heart appears to be about a relationship gone bad and the man's reaction to being cheated on. He expresses anger, resentment, distrust. It's all there in the lyrics to Last Heart. And I think it's kind of a, girl done me wrong type song about heartbreak. And the lyrics make this pretty clear. In verse 1, he says, "How many times have you called my number, wishing I was someone else? How many times did my heart tumble, feeling sorry for myself? How many times have I kissed you and smelled another man's perfume? How many lonely nights I missed you, wishing for your body in my lonely room." So the first few lines of this verse, the how many times have you called my number, wishing I was someone else, I think either provide a sense of obligation that she might have felt to have to call him as her official boyfriend, even though that, she's wanting to be with someone else. I guess maybe he sensed that he wasn't as that she wasn't as thrilled to give him a call and didn't act as happy or as engaging with him as he envisioned her being with someone else. And possibly this is all in his head. Like, this is all just projection on his part, because the relationship is fading or failing in some way. So what's one way that you can kind of help make you feel better? Like, it must not be me because she's the one cheating on me. Is there actually any evidence? How many times have I called you number? Have you called my number wishing I was someone else? I mean, is that a rhetorical question? Or is he literally asking her, when you call me, do you wish you were talking to your other man? I don't know. It feels like he's a bit insecure in this moment to even suggest that. but he makes it sound like she's been calling him out of some sort of sense of obligation. And then the line about smelling another man's perfume on her, well, again, is that real or is it imagined? How many times did my heart tumble feeling sorry for myself? Sorry for yourself because you think you're being cheated on or you have evidence. You claim you smelled another man's perfume, which I guess just even commenting on Prince's use of the word perfume when talking about, a man's cologne or, the fragrance a man would wear. It's something that he has done before. He does it, I think, in Cool from the Time, which, of course, he wrote the lyrics to. Pretty Man on Raven to the Joy Fantastic. Mentions perfume and lotion, and when two are in love, cover each other with perfume and lotion. So, again, as the man singing that implies that she's also going to put perfume and lotion on him. So he really used the word perfume interchangeably with cologne. There was no attempt to turn it into a more masculine word. It was just, this is the fragrance. So, deal with it. I'm not going to change the word. He liked the word perfume, apparently. So he, in the song, he basically is saying in the first verse that I believe you're cheating on me. I have maybe evidence, maybe not, but the belief is there. I feel it. I sense it. Then the chorus of the song is, baby, if you break my heart one more time, it'll be the last heart you ever break. I've taken all I can take. Baby, this heart wasn't meant to break. So, yeah, is that a threat? What exactly does he mean by the line, it'll be the last heart you ever break? Like, is he threatening her? Is he plan on harming her? Does he plan on murdering her? Or is it more of a metaphorical, like shaming or doxing before doxing became a thing? You know what I'm saying? Like something that he might do to, I don't know, take her off the market, so to speak. Shame her in a way that would make her undesirable to any others. I'm not exactly sure how he would do that in a pre-social media age, but he certainly seems angry enough to do whatever he thinks he needs to do to make himself feel better and to potentially stop her from hurting other people like she hurt him. I tend to think of it more as, a really dark and dangerous threat, and not because I enjoy songs that speak about violence towards women. I don't. That's not a thing that I get off on, or a kink that a particular dark and twisted kink that I have. It is just because I think, again, as a songwriter, Prince explored different aspects of his personality throughout his lyrics and all of his songs over the course of his career. Why couldn't one of them be anger and resentment towards a woman who harmed him? Or, a woman who emotionally harmed him. Having a dark thought isn't a crime. Committing and acting on that dark thought potentially is, depending on what that dark thought may be in his head. But thinking about it, venting, writing a song to explore that really deep darkness and disturbing emotional reaction to knowing that your partner has cheated on you, or at least, again, believing that your partner has cheated on you, is an interesting topic. It's an interesting topic to mine. I mean, there's the Beatles song "Run for Your Life" that does the same thing. It may be seen as problematic now, and it probably was back then, but if you just look at it as a song about someone who is, expressing some really disturbing thoughts, isn't that better to just get it out there? Are we going to admonish screenwriters for writing scripts that involve murder and torture of women as entertainment? I don't think so. Because again, expressing it through art is not a crime. And no Prince girlfriends that I'm aware of have ever come forward and said he was an abuser, like a physical abuser. Anyway, so it went a little bit deep onto that, but I think that is my take on the chorus. I believe it to be a legitimate threat and not just an idle one. Verse 2, how many times can you hurt me before your conscience make you stop? You made it all, why now desert me? Baby, you know you can never cop a body that will do you like I do. Oh, you got to get your thing together, sister. I'm tired of being your fool. So, in another Prince lyrical trope, he doesn't understand how she could betray him because he's so good. He's so good in bed. And he's so good at making her feel good. A body that will do you like I do. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely gone through songs where, and one, of course, I think of is, off the top of my head, without doing any research, is Something in the Water. Talks about how good his legs are and how fine of a body he has, but it isn't enough. You know, she still treats him like shit, basically, in the song Something in the Water, and so that's what is happening here in Last Heart. She's treating him like shit despite him being someone who can please her. And he says, baby, you can never cop a body that will do you like I do. So you'll never, basically saying you'll never find another person who can do you like I can. And he also is very expressing frustration at her emotional capabilities of allowing herself to hurt someone that she allegedly cares about. Like, when is your conscience going to tell you this is wrong? How come that hasn't happened yet? Why hasn't your conscience made you stop your behavior and address the real issue, which is maybe you're a bad person? And I think that's also what he's trying to say here is, how can you hurt me like this? Like, if your conscience isn't making you stop, what does that say about you? What does that say about your personality, your emotional maturity or lack thereof? What does that say? Does that say that maybe you're just not a good person? If you could so willingly and easily hurt someone you allegedly care about, or even if you don't care about me, then just stop with the lies and stop with the cheating and just be honest and let me go. Because again, I think in this song, what I'm getting is like, she's not admitting that she's with someone else, that she's cheating on Prince, or, you know, the narrator of the song, that she's trying to use another 21st century term, gaslight him. Although I don't know if we really have any evidence of that. It's more just, I think, he believes she's cheating and she's not being forthcoming about it. But he definitely feels like she's breaking his heart, because again, that's the chorus. If you break my heart one more time, it'll be the last heart you ever break. I've taken all I can take. Baby, my heart wasn't meant to break. It actually says wasn't meant to break, but wasn't. Same thing. In terms of lyrics, there really isn't much more. He does in the outro. I mean, he repeats the chorus a couple times, and, you know, this is where you get the really nice Eric lead sax solo after the second verse. I think that's the song's highlight, personally, is the sax solo, and I'm not normally a sax guy. Like, I personally sometimes think Prince used the saxophone a bit too much. Once he found, musicians that could fulfill that need. Yeah, I know. Oh, well, why don't you want Prince to grow as an artist? I'm not saying I didn't want him to grow. Clearly he enjoyed putting sax in music. He just didn't have the means to do it early on, so he used a synthesizer. But it just feels like sometimes he used it too much. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I really like this sax solo by Eric Leeds, and it kind of acts as, not kind of, it definitely acts as like where a guitar solo would fit in on a rock song. And it serves the same purpose. But the only other lyrics that Prince kind of really speaks in this song is towards the very end. He says, when you fix your mouth to tell a brand new lie, never ignore the truth. By and by, false words should never be spoken. Baby, my heart should never be broken. So, again, he's admonishing her for lying about her cheating ways. So that's kind of the takeaway of the song is he believes she's lying. And again, the song doesn't make it explicitly clear that she is lying or cheating, but the feeling is there, the heartbreak and emotion is there. So either we have to assume that she actually is cheating, or this narrator is unreliable. I mean, that is also a screenwriting technique, is to make the narrator unreliable. So that way there's kind of like a twist ending when you realize that everything that you've been told through the course of a film has holes in it because the person who's telling the story is unreliable. Maybe the narrator of this song is unreliable. Maybe all of this is just in his head. Maybe it's, again, projection on her, the failings of their relationship. It's easy enough to blame a person who is unfaithful or believed to be unfaithful as to why they stopped loving you. Just a thought. Okay, so I think I will now read what is in the book on the song. So this entry is from January 12th, 1986, and this is, there's quite a few tracks here that were done around the same time or on the same date. There's a mixing of songs like Neon Telephone, Splash, Teacher Teacher, An Honest Man, Venus de Milo, an instrumental song called Conversation Piece. But what they say about Last Heart, at 5:30 p.m., Prince switched from mixing to tracking one of 3 new songs, Last Heart, Conversation Piece, and a song written by Wendy and Lisa called Everything But You. He followed it up with Last Heart, so they talk a little bit about Everything But You, and then the book says, he followed it up with Last Heart, a song that blends his own potential weakness with his threat of violence against his lover, a theme he'd hinted about in multiple songs over the course of his career, including I Would Die For You, Sarah, If I Was Your Girlfriend, and the unreleased Extra Lovable. Peggy Leonard recalls how she felt engineering sessions in songs like this. Was he easy to work with? No. Was he amazing to work with? Yes. He was a musical genius. He was fascinating to watch, but he was scary as a human being because you never knew who you were going to get. I never expected him to be nice. I don't think he was ever nice to me. I think he was as nice as he was to anybody except for somebody that he was sleeping with, which we weren't ever. I thought he was probably the most physically perfect, attractive person I had ever met. But the thought of being vulnerable with him just made me hyperventilate, because sometimes he was mean. I didn't want him to know that much about me. I didn't want to give him any ammo. There were many moments where it was not tender. It was like overcooked. Stick a fork in it. It's done. But for the most part, really authentic, recalled Susanna. When he was with me and Wendy and Lisa, I used the word tender. I don't want to say vulnerable because he wasn't, but he was relaxed in a way that seemed more familial. I just sensed that when he was with Wendy, Lisa, and I, there was no awkwardness. There was no dead air. There was no self-consciousness. There was nothing self-conscious about it. So he presented himself much more tender than I think most people have ever known him to be. He was a layered and complicated man. The track featured Prince on his usual lineup of instruments, drums, bass, guitar, and the Yamaha DX7 synth, and Eric Leeds on sax. Once his sax overdubs were completed, he and Prince worked on a funky track called Conversation Piece. So let's see, is there anything else about Last Heart? From 5 a.m. to 8 a.m., it appears that all additional vocals were recorded for the earlier tracks, including multiple versions of Susanna's and Prince's blended background for Last Heart. Okay. Yeah, not a lot about Last Heart. Just looking at additional pages, that was the first time it was mentioned in the book. And then there was additional mixing for the track a couple of days later. And then later on in the book, it points to some track configurations for Dream Factory. And on one configuration from June of 86, it shows Last Heart as the first song on side 4, which would then be followed up with Witness for the Prosecution, Movie Star, A Place in Heaven, and All My Dreams. And then another configuration of Dream Factory from July of 86 shows Last Heart as the second song on side 4, which was led off by The Cross, then Last Heart, then Witness for the Prosecution, then Movie Star, then All My Dreams. So in both of those examples, Last Heart is on side 4 of the double disc set. And then it talks about the August 86 performance at Paris, France. And the set list contained the live debut of deep tracks like Susanna's Blues, Last Heart, and An Honest Man. The New Morning Concert, which is what this was called. The venue was New Morning in Paris, France. Small capacity of 300, so it was an after party. The New Morning Concert would be the final one-off show that he'd ever play with the Revolution. Okay. Yeah, because he would break up the band very, very shortly after. And that was August 24th, 86. All right, well, that is really all I have to say about Last Heart. I do like the song. It's one of my favorites off of Crystal Ball from 98. It's not a song that I think is overly deep, but is funky, and the sax solo, as I mentioned, is a favorite of mine, so I get a lot out of the song. It's relatively short, about 3 minutes, and comes in, comes out, does its thing. So what do you think? Do you think Prince's character in this song is actually being cheated on, or is he delusional and paranoid? And does his violent tendencies in the chorus speak to an actual threat, or is it just more wish fulfillment or, fantasy towards an unfaithful lover? What do you think about Last Heart? This has been the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger. You can find the show at pressrewind.net and on social media. And until next time, thank you very much, and goodbye.